"With cages under the ground where they make dogs fight each other," Ethan replied, his small fingers still buried in Max's fur. "The doctor there puts needles in them to make them mad and want to bite." Dr. Phillips exchanged a significant look with David and Olivia. "There have been rumors of an underground dog-fighting ring in this county for years, but no one's been able to find it. The police say there isn't enough evidence." "Max can show us where it is," Ethan said confidently. "He remembers the way from the forest to the big house with the red door." "Ethan, honey," Olivia began gently, "dogs can't really talk to people or show them things. You have a wonderful imagination, but—" "It's not imagination," Ethan interrupted, tears suddenly streaming down his face. "Max is talking to me in my head. He's showing me pictures. Why won't anyone believe me?" "To everyone's surprise, Doctor." Phillips crouched down next to Ethan, her eyes level with his. "I believe you, Ethan," she said quietly. "The miller's little girl used to say the same thing, that Max would talk to her in her head. No one believed her either." A heavy silence fell over the room, broken only by Max's labored breathing. "Now, Doctor," Phillips continued, standing up and turning to her medical equipment, "I need to take some x-rays and assess the extent of Max's injuries. Ethan, you can stay, but you need to stand back when I ask you to." "Okay," Ethan nodded solemnly. "Max says thank you for helping him. He says you always gave him the good treats with the soft centers." Dr. Phillips froze, her back to them. When she turned around, her eyes were wet. "The Millers couldn't afford the premium treats, so I used to slip him some from my personal stash when they visited. No one knew about that." As Dr. Phillips began her examination, Ethan remained close to Max's head, whispering reassurances. The dog's eyes never left the boy's face, even as the veterinarian probed his injuries, causing occasional whimpers of pain. "Both back legs are broken," Dr. Phillips confirmed, after studying the x-rays. "Multiple fractures consistent with blunt force trauma. He also has 3 broken ribs and a punctured lung, which explains the labored breathing." "Can you fix him?" Ethan asked, his voice small but determined. Dr. Phillips sighed. "The surgeries he needs will be extensive and expensive. We're talking about at least $5,000, possibly more." "We'll find a way," David said, surprising himself with his determination. "Whatever it takes." "What's this?" Dr. Phillips asked suddenly, her fingers probing a small lump under the skin at the base of Max's neck. "That's the thing the bad men put in him," Ethan said matter-of-factly, "so they can find him if he runs away." Dr. Phillips frowned, feeling the lump more carefully. "It's too large to be a standard microchip, and it's not in the usual location." She reached for a handheld scanner and passed it over the area. The device beeped, and her frown deepened. "There is something electronic in there, but it's not registering as any standard identification chip I've ever seen." She looked up at David and Olivia, her expression grave. "I think your son might be right. This could be some kind of tracking device." "Can you remove it?" Olivia asked, her voice hushed. "I'll have to do it during the surgery to repair his other injuries," Dr. Phillips replied. "But yes, I can remove it." "You have to destroy it," Ethan said urgently. "If you don't, the bad men will come here. They'll hurt Max again, and maybe us too." Dr. Phillips studied the small boy's face, then nodded. "I'll make sure it's completely disabled before I even remove it from his body. Now I need to prepare him for surgery. It's going to be a long night." "I'm staying," Ethan declared, his jaw set stubbornly. David put a gentle hand on his son's shoulder. "Ethan, Dr. Phillips needs space to work, and you need to rest. We can come back first thing in the morning." "No." Tears filled Ethan's eyes again. "I promised Max I wouldn't leave him. He's scared." Dr. Phillips intervened. "There's a small waiting room with a couch just down the hall. Perhaps Ethan could rest there while I work. That way he's still close by." Ethan looked at Max as if consulting with the dog, then nodded slowly. "Max says that's okay, as long as I stay in the building. He can still feel me if I'm close." David and Olivia helped Dr. Phillips prepare Max for surgery, then led a reluctant Ethan to the waiting room. Despite his protests about staying awake to keep sending brave thoughts to Max, the exhausted boy fell asleep almost as soon as he lay down on the couch. As Olivia covered him with her jacket, David stepped into the hallway, running a hand through his still damp hair. "This is insane," he whispered when Olivia joined him. "How does Ethan know all these things?" That was actually the miller's dog, and he knew about the treats Dr. Phillips gave him. How is that possible? Olivia shook her head, her eyes troubled. "I don't know. But you saw how Max responded to him. It's like they really are communicating somehow. And what about this dog-fighting ring he mentioned? And this man, Alexander Monarch? Should we go to the police?" "With what? The imaginings of a 4-year-old boy who claims a dog is talking to him?" Olivia sighed. "They'd think we were crazy." The surgery lasted over 4 hours. Ethan slept through most of it, though he occasionally murmured in his sleep, his small face contorting with worry or pain that seemed to mirror the distant proceedings in the operating room. It was nearly 2 a.m. when Dr. Phillips finally emerged, looking exhausted but satisfied. "Max made it through the surgery," she announced to the anxious parents. "I've set both legs with pins, repaired the damage to his lung, and removed that device from his neck." "What was it?" David asked. Dr. Phillips reached into her pocket and pulled out a small plastic container. Inside was what looked like a sophisticated microchip attached to a tiny battery. "It's definitely a tracking device, but nothing like I've ever seen used for pets. This is military-grade technology, extremely expensive and completely unnecessary for normal pet identification." "The bad men use it to find the dogs if they escape," came Ethan's small voice from the doorway of the waiting room. He rubbed his eyes sleepily, but his gaze was fixed on the container in Dr. Phillips's hand. "Did you break it like you promised?" Dr. Phillips nodded. "I disabled it before I even removed it from Max's body, just to be safe. The battery is disconnected, and the chip is damaged. It can't transmit anything anymore." Ethan visibly relaxed. "Good. Max was really worried about that. Can I see him now?" "He's still unconscious from the anesthesia," Dr. Phillips explained gently. "But you can look in on him if you want." She led them to a recovery area where Max lay on a padded table, his body covered with a warming blanket, his legs encased in casts, and an IV line running into his front paw. Despite the tubes and monitors, he looked more peaceful than when they had found him, his breathing steady and even. Ethan immediately went to the dog's side, placing one small hand gently on his head. "He's dreaming about his first family," he whispered, "about the little girl who used to give him parts of her sandwich when no one was looking." Dr. Phillips made a small sound, something between a gasp and a sob. "Leah Miller was 7 when Max was stolen from their yard," she said. "She used to sneak in bits of her lunch every day." The silence that followed was heavy with implications none of them quite dared to voice. "You should all go home and get some rest," Dr. Phillips finally said. "Max will be sedated until morning. You can come back then." "We're not leaving him," Ethan said firmly. "We promised." Dr. Phillips smiled tiredly. "How about a compromise? There's a cot in my office upstairs. You can all stay there for what's left of the night. I'll be monitoring Max anyway, so I'll wake you if there's any change." Too exhausted to argue, and reluctant to force Ethan away from the dog he had so inexplicably bonded with, David and Olivia agreed. As they settled onto the narrow cot in Dr. Phillips's modest apartment above the clinic, Ethan sandwiched between his parents, Olivia couldn't help but ask one more time, "Ethan, honey, how do you know what Max is thinking? How can you talk to him?" Ethan's eyes were already drooping with exhaustion, but he answered with perfect clarity. "Everyone can do it, Mommy. People just forget how when they grow up. It's easy. You just have to listen with your heart instead of your ears." Within moments, he was asleep, his small chest rising and falling peacefully. David and Olivia lay awake a while longer, watching their son sleep, both wrestling with the impossible things they had witnessed that day. "What do we do now?" Olivia whispered. David pulled his family closer, his eyes fixed on the darkness beyond the window, where rain still fell steadily. "I don't know," he admitted. "But whatever's happening here, I think Ethan and that dog are connected somehow, and I think they both need our help." Outside in the rain-slick parking lot, a dark sedan pulled up silently, its headlights off. Inside, a man lifted a handheld device to his ear. "The signal's gone," he reported. "Disappeared completely about 4 hours ago." There was a pause as he listened to the voice on the other end of the line. "Yes, sir?" "The last location was the veterinary clinic on Oak Street. What do you want me to do?" Another pause. "Understood. I'll keep surveillance and report if there's any change." The man lowered the device and settled back in his seat, his eyes fixed on the darkened clinic. Inside, a wounded dog slept, a small boy dreamed, and a storm was brewing that would change all their lives forever. Rain lashed the streets of Pinewood, a quiet town veiled in secrets, but on one unforgettable night, the storm wasn't the only thing stirring. 4-year-old Ethan Wilson had always been different, sensitive, quiet. But when he found Max, a broken, battered German shepherd with legs twisted from cruelty, something inside the boy ignited. That stormy night, when Ethan wrapped his small arms around the injured dog, their connection was instant and unexplainable. In the following days, Ethan claimed Max was telling him things, not with barks or growls, but pictures, feelings, and thoughts. At first his parents, David and Olivia, chalked it up to imagination, but what Ethan said kept matching real-world facts, names, places, details he couldn't possibly know. They watched as their quiet son became utterly focused. He barely left Max's side. When Max whimpered, Ethan comforted him. When Ethan closed his eyes, he said he could see what Max saw, what he remembered. A place of pain, a red door, cages underground, dogs crying in the dark. It sounded like madness until it wasn't. Dr. Phillips, the local vet, had seen the infection in Max's leg and confirmed Ethan's descriptions. Detective Ramirez investigated the names Ethan mentioned and found ties to dogfighting rings. Slowly, skepticism turned to concern, then horror. One night, Ethan simply said, "They're going to move the dogs. Max says they know we're coming. If we don't help now, they'll all disappear." David and Olivia faced a choice: dismiss their son's plea or believe him, and risk everything. They chose to believe. With Dr. Phillips watching Max, the family set off, guided by Ethan's eerie confidence. "Turn left at the broken tree," he said. "There's a road hidden behind those bushes." Every direction proved accurate. Even Detective Ramirez, waiting nearby in an unmarked car, seemed amazed. Then, from a hillside, they saw it, a weathered farmhouse, the red door, and behind it, a barn surrounded by fencing and security systems far too elaborate for a typical farm. David snapped photos, Olivia documented everything, but just as they turned to leave, Ethan stiffened. "They're coming," he said. Moments later, a black SUV blocked the road. Out stepped Lawrence, one of the names Max had shown Ethan in a dream. With guns drawn, he threatened the family. It might have ended there. But Detective Ramirez emerged from the shadows, badge raised. Tense words were exchanged. But it was enough. The Wilsons escaped. Ramirez had the beginnings of a case, but they all knew it wasn't over. That night, back at home, Ethan announced quietly, "They're coming for Max, and for me. The man with the white hair wants to know how I hear dogs." They fled to Dr. Phillips's remote cabin. Max, still healing, grew restless. So did Ethan. He couldn't sleep. At 3:17 a.m., David found his son and Max outside, under the moonlight. "We have to go," Ethan whispered. "Now." David hesitated. Olivia begged him to wait. But then out of the woods came barking, first one dog, then dozens, strays, hunting dogs, farm dogs, dogs that had once suffered and were now answering Max's silent call. They'd come to help. Led by Ethan, the family and their new pack made their way back to the farm. They crawled through a drainage pipe to avoid the cameras. The dogs created a distraction on the far side of the property. As guards ran to investigate the barking chaos, Ethan led his parents to the red door. Down the stairs they ran, into the horror Max had seen. Cages lined the walls, dogs scarred, shaking, whimpering. In the center, the fighting ring, the pit. Then came footsteps, Lawrence and Monarch. Monarch was exactly as Max remembered, elegant, cold, commanding. "The boy who speaks to dogs," he said with quiet awe. "I've been waiting to meet you." Lawrence reached for his weapon, but Max struck first. Despite his injuries, the shepherd launched himself at the man. Chaos erupted. The Wilsons ran, but Monarch grabbed Ethan. Max gave chase. Olivia screamed. Then, sirens. Detective Ramirez. Police cruisers crashed through the gate. Max, with a last reserve of strength, tackled Monarch, freeing Ethan. Officers swarmed the facility. They found documents, cages, blood-stained ledgers, proof of a massive dogfighting operation spanning states. The next morning, the farm was no longer a place of suffering. Animal control arrived. Veterinarians, news crews. Olivia wept as she watched Ethan kneel beside a trembling Rottweiler. "They're scared," he whispered, "but they know they're safe now." Weeks passed. The story became national news. Monarch and his men were arrested. Local officials tied to the ring were exposed. But the real miracle wasn't in the courtroom. It was in Ethan, the boy who could feel the hearts of dogs. He helped retrain and rehabilitate dozens of rescued animals. His empathy reached dogs others deemed unadoptable. Max became both protector and partner, always by Ethan's side. 6 months later, the Wilsons opened a new facility, the Wilson Miller Rehabilitation Center, a place of healing, of hope, of redemption. At its opening ceremony, all 15 surviving dogs were present. Ethan moved among them like a shepherd among his flock. Max followed closely, his eyes calm, alert, proud. Dr. Phillips said it best. Ethan isn't just gifted. He's a bridge. He reminds us that when we truly listen, without words, without fear, we can heal anything. On the drive home that night, Olivia turned to her son. "You've changed the world, Ethan." Ethan smiled, resting his hand on Max. "Max says we're just getting started." If this tale moved you, if you felt the tension, the heartbreak, and the triumph, please support our channel by hitting the like button and subscribing. Your support means the world to us and helps us bring more thrilling, emotional, and inspiring stories your way. Leave a comment below and let us know what you think. Do you believe dogs have an extraordinary sixth sense? Share your thoughts and personal stories with us. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.